Picking up from our last discussion on the challenges of escaping the dominator model, we see this fascinating tension in how we imagine our future. Science fiction, for all its dazzling tech, often just gives us a shiny medieval kingdom. Think Dune or Star Wars, feudal lords with laser swords. After 5 millennia of living under that kind of social structure, it's tough, isn't it? To even picture something different. It's like trying to imagine a world without gravity after being born on Earth. Now, let's talk about Gilman's Herland. Bit tongue-in-cheek, sure, but it throws a curveball, doesn't it? A society surviving because men wipe themselves out in war and women learn to reproduce solo, wild. But the real point isn't about gender itself. It's about how we're shaped by the system. We've seen peaceful societies had men and women too. Think Neolithic times, Crete, the Kung San, the Bumbuti. Even in our own world, not all women are gentle damsels, and many men aren't brutish overlords. The truth is, both sexes have this incredible biological range. But the dominator system, like a rigid exoskeleton, forces everyone into narrow boxes, stunting potential. It's the system, not the sex, that's the problem. This brings us to androcracy, basically, rule by men characterized by strict hierarchy. And here's where it gets interesting, maybe a little frustrating. You look at sociobiology sometimes, and they love talking about ants and bees. Highly organized, right? Worker castes, queen. Sounds like a perfect analogy for human society, doesn't it? Especially when they want to push that old Sejosiji social Darwinism idea. It's almost too convenient. Using insect societies to justify rigid human rankings makes it seem like this male-dominant female-subservient setup is somehow baked into our genes. But is it really that simple? Or is it more about what we choose to emphasize or ignore? But hold on, evolution isn't some pre-written script we're just following. As scientists like Washburn pointed out, we've been active players all along. Think about tools. Our upright posture freed our hands, allowing us to make tools. Those tools then allowed us to do more complex things, which further refined our posture and locomotion. See? Cause and effect back and forth. And as things got more complicated, surviving wasn't just about having the right genes anymore. It was increasingly about our culture, our choices, our collective ingenuity. So we stand at a crossroads. How do we organize ourselves? Do we keep heading down the path of androcracy, with its built-in biases towards destruction and control? Or do we chart a new course towards skill-y partnership? So, how do we make that switch? Well, nature throws dice sometimes. Prigogine and Eldredge talk about bifurcations in evolution, moments where things could go one way or another, often involving chance. But here's where humans are different. Laszlo points out we can think. We can plan. We can act together, look ahead, and consciously choose our direction. We're not just rolling dice, we're playing chess. Salk echoes this urgency. We need to give our minds the tools to actually imagine and build a better world. It sounds daunting, but maybe it's not impossible. Let's dig deeper. The good news, our ideas aren't fixed. What we think is possible, what we value, it's all shaped by history. And the best proof that change is possible. Look at our prehistory. Remember how the image of woman shifted dramatically. Once revered across much of the ancient world, she became primarily seen as a sexual object to be owned and controlled only after the rise of androcracy. Same story with symbols like the tree of knowledge and the serpent shedding its skin. Originally, they represented the thrill of gaining knowledge, breaking free. Then bam, suddenly they're about punishment for daring to question the boss. See? Meanings flip-flop. Let's take the cross. Prehistoric figurines show crosses linked to life, growth, birth. Think of the Egyptian hieroglyph for health. That meaning stuck around. But then impaling people became a common execution method in androcratic cultures. Suddenly, the cross is synonymous with death. Fast forward to Jesus' movement, an attempt to reclaim that symbol, to turn it into something about rebirth, equality, compassion, values often labeled feminine. Even centuries later, when religious leaders might preach Armageddon, we see this countercurrent, a massive push to revive those original life-affirming meanings. It shows how potent these symbols are, and how much power we still have to reinterpret them. And this isn't just some dusty academic exercise. Right now, we're seeing a huge surge in reaffirming life over death. Artists like Imogene Cunningham and Judy Chicago are using female sexual imagery in ways that echo ancient symbols of birth and transformation, something almost unheard of historically. And look at the ecology movement. They're bringing back images of nature, seals, birds, forests, that were once tied to the goddess and the unity of all life. It's happening often unconsciously, this unraveling of the old tapestry and weaving in more partnership patterns. But we need more, a critical mass of new stories, new myths, to really tip the scales. Perhaps the most crucial shift is questioning the very bedrock assumption of androcracy, that male dominance warfare are just natural, unavoidable parts of human existence. Anthropologists like the McConaughey's found a strong link between rigid gender stereotypes needed to maintain male dominance and higher rates of violence, not just war, but domestic abuse, child abuse, rape. And this isn't just one study. More researchers are starting to ask different questions, look at both men and women, and realize we're missing huge chunks of the picture about human potential. It's like realizing half the orchestra has been silent for millennia. This questioning, this shift in consciousness, is exactly what cultural transformation theory talks about. It's the move from an androcratic mindset to a Gilanic one. What does this look like? People are finally calling out destructive myths head on. Think about the hero archetype. From Theseus to Rambo to Bond, what are these stories really teaching kids? Often it's glorifying conquest and domination. Now people are demanding we teach caring, affiliation instead. Sweden even banned war toys. Why? Because traditionally, they were designed to desensitize boys to hurting others, teaching the very attitudes needed for killing. And peace protests worldwide? That's millions signaling a renewed awareness of our shared humanity. It's a revolution happening bit by bit. We're seeing this challenge on a massive scale. People are confronting the core model of male dominator slash female dominated relations that underpins the whole dominator worldview. The idea of a war of the sexes? Increasingly seen as a result of that model, not the cause. And that nasty habit of seeing anyone different as the enemy. That's also being challenged. There's a growing realization that this global shift towards partnership, this consciousness of interconnectedness, is deeply tied to rethinking and transforming the roles of both women and men. It's all connected. Jean Baker Miller's work here is really insightful. She points out this classic split. Women are often socialized to prioritize connection, caring for others, sometimes even above their own needs. Men, conversely, are often pushed towards pursuing their own goals, sometimes at the expense of others. This creates distortions. Women might feel devastated if a relationship ends, seeing it as a loss of self. Men might see connection as a weakness, something secondary to proving their manhood. But Miller argues crucially, this drive women feel towards affiliation isn't flawed. It's the starting point for something better, a way for everyone, men and women, to grow through connection. This leads to new ways of thinking about the psyche. The old Freudian view focused heavily on basic drives, food, sex, safety, and the defenses we build around them. Maslow and others added a layer. Humans also have these higher-level needs for growth, for actualization, things that set us apart. And this shift from defense to growth is key. Hierarchies based on force-breed defensiveness. In an androcracy, ranking half the population as inferior, blaming women for the fall from grace, as Adler noted, poisons everything, creates constant inner conflict. Moving towards partnership means moving from a defensive posture to a growth-oriented one. And what happens when we move towards growth? Maslow observed this in creative people. As they move beyond basic defenses, they don't become selfish. Instead, they experience peak experiences, moments of profound connection, realizing we're all fundamentally linked. This theme of interconnectedness, which Miller calls affiliation, Bernard the female ethos, and spiritual leaders call love, is popping up everywhere, even in science. Think chaos theory, feminist scholarship, approaches focusing on relationships, not just hierarchies. It's a departure from the old Western scientific style, often seen as more mechanistic, compartmentalized. It feels more holistic, almost intuitive. This new way of thinking is leading to a new kind of science and spirituality. Think about McClintock winning a Nobel Prize for work that involved intuition and holistic thinking, something often sidelined. Salk talks about a science of empathy, using both reason and feeling to shape our collective future. Montague sees education as unlocking innate potential, seeing society as a living system we're all part of. And Rose emphasizes that this new science shouldn't be about dominating nature or each other. It's about cooperation, harmony, understanding our place within the larger web. Why did we get so far from this? Evelyn Fox Keller and others point out how science, cloaked in objectivity, often dismissed caring perspectives as subjective or feminine. Result? Women were largely excluded, and knowledge about cooperation, about nurturing forms of development that support evolution, not just exploit it, was sidelined. This new, more inclusive science is crucial for bridging the gap between science and spirituality that modernity created. It also means we need to rethink our whole approach to conflict. Conflict is unavoidable, right? Different needs, different desires. Clashes are going to happen. Jean Baker Miller says the key isn't eliminating conflict, which is impossible, but making it productive. Productive conflict forces us to look at our own assumptions and the other side's perspective, leading to real change for everyone involved. Destructive conflict? That's what happens when you equate disagreement with the need for violence to enforce a hierarchy. The real danger, Miller warns, comes from trying to suppress conflict altogether. Suppressing it doesn't make it disappear. It just builds pressure until it explodes in the most destructive way possible. It's the absence of healthy conflict that's truly dangerous. Thankfully, there are powerful alternatives. Nonviolent resistance isn't new. Socrates, Jesus practiced it. Modern figures like Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. embodied it, though the system responded with violence and mythologizing. But who used nonviolence most extensively? Women. Think about the suffragettes. Fighting for voting rights, birth control access, they endured arrests, hunger strikes, refusing to use force. This isn't just passive resistance. Gandhi called it satyagraha, truth force. By refusing to cooperate with injustice and violence, you create positive energy for change. The goal isn't to crush the conflict, but to transform it. And this ties directly into how we define power. Miller nails it. The urge to control others often comes from feeling powerless. It's a reaction. Real power, power for oneself, comes from growth. The more developed an individual becomes, the less they need to limit or dominate others. Think about it. A confident, secure person doesn't need to belittle others to feel good. Feminist writers have explored this extensively. Power as affiliation, sisterhood is powerful, win-win scenarios where everyone can advance. Symbolically, it's the circle, the oval, representing connection versus the pyramid. It's the transformative power of agape, that selfless love, often distorted into brotherly love in androcratic contexts. Connecting back to the goddess, she wasn't just about nurturing. She symbolized transformation, death leading to life, enlightenment. Erich Neumann saw her as representing both the physical cycle of life and death, and the spiritual journey towards consciousness, knowledge, higher goals. So, reconnecting with this earlier tradition, this partnership model, is more than just celebrating women. It's about embracing a worldview that values creation, illumination, and connection over destruction and exploitation. It offers a positive alternative to the myths that have long valued killing and taking over giving and nurturing. Now let's talk politics and economics. Futurists like Toffler talk about waves of technological change, agricultural, industrial, post-industrial, big shifts. But looking through the lens of cultural transformation, many of these historical shifts were just changes within the androcratic system. One type of domination replaced another. There were moments, bifurcation points, where a fundamental shift towards partnership seemed possible, but it never quite broke through. Think of it like stretching a rubber band. Sometimes it stretched really far, like during Jesus' time, but always snapped back to its original shape. Maybe, just maybe, this time it's going to break. If we do break free, what happens? We already have the technology. Ruth Sivard showed decades ago The cost of one missile could feed millions, build schools, open clinics. The cost of a single submarine could lift millions out of poverty. We have the means. What we lack is the guiding system, the values, to redirect all that tech and wealth towards life-enhancing ends. Futurists like Willis Harman talk about a metamorphosis in our basic premises, balancing competition with cooperation, individualism with love. It requires a higher awareness, global cooperation, harmony with nature. John McHale puts it bluntly, our mental blueprints are its basic action programs. Our beliefs, our values, they drive the future. What's striking about these futurist visions, global cooperation, free partnership, balancing individualism with love, harmony with nature, is that they sound remarkably like a reassertion of what some call a more feminine ethos. Care, connection, cooperation. It's essentially calling for a replacement of the dominator model with a partnership one. All those grand transformations they talk about, they boil down to this fundamental shift in how we relate to each other and the world. So, what does this look like practically? First, technology shifts from destruction to sustenance. Less waste, less overconsumption. Think about our obsession with buying stuff. It often masks a lack of fulfilling emotional connections, connections stifled by the current system. Crucially, it means ending the politics of domination and the economics of exploitation. John Stuart Mill pointed out ages ago that how wealth is distributed isn't dictated by some iron law of economics. It's a political choice, a human choice. As long as androcracy holds sway, true justice in either capitalism or communism remains elusive. Look at the US with its special interest money, or the USSR with its privileged elite, neither fully escaped the grip of domination. A key feature of androcratic economies is the dual economy. Women perform vast amounts of unpaid or low-paid work, raising kids, cleaning homes, providing healthcare informally, yet this is systematically undervalued or ignored. UN stats from 1985 showed women doing two-thirds of the world's work hours, earning a tenth of the income, owning a hundredth of the property. Their unpaid labor, like farming in Africa or informal healthcare globally, is left out of national productivity figures. Hazel Henderson calls this statistical illusions. Positive futures, as Henderson, Robertson, Huber envision, involve rebalancing this. It means recognizing that traditional systems, capitalist or communist, are built on alienating caring labor. Integrating this fully into the economic mainstream is essential for transformation. Moving towards this partnership world will bring changes we can barely predict yet. Given past disappointments, skepticism is understandable. But remember, changing the structure changes the function. You can't sit in the corner of a round room. As we shift from a dominator to a partnership society, our old ways of thinking and acting will naturally evolve. For millennia, our spirit has been constrained. But the drive for truth, beauty, justice, it's never died. As we break free, our creativity will soar. The caterpillar becoming a butterfly, that's the image that comes to mind, regeneration, transformation, reaching for the heights. So what might this butterfly world look like? First, freedom from the fear of war. Nuclear annihilation recedes as masculinity sheds its dominance mandate, birth rates balance with resources, and women gain equality. Environmental problems lessen as we prioritize care over conquest. Economic development becomes far more effective and equitable, lifting everyone. Violence, crime, mental illness decrease as healthier relationships and parenting styles take root. Institutions become flexible, linking-based, not ranking-based, allowing maximum diversity. Global cooperation replaces narrow nationalism. Technology serves life enhancement, birth control, anti-aging research, lab-created life carefully evaluated. Wealth is shared, and hoarding is seen as aberrant. Myths celebrate life and gratitude. Love, including sexual love, is celebrated openly. Childhood is cherished, education is lifelong, focused on potential. And above all, children's minds are freed from limiting fears and negative myths, filled instead with stories of goodness, peace, creativity, and love. After the bloody detour, both women and men finally discover what it means to be human. Looking back at the 25th printing, the tension remains. The push against domination continues globally, but so does fierce resistance, sometimes violently regressive. The Soviet Union's collapse offers a stark example. Gorbachev's reforms, his personal partnership, his desire for peace inspired hope worldwide. Yet beneath the surface, there were reports of sabotage, elite obstruction, deep-seated inefficiencies threatening chaos. It highlights how difficult, how messy this transition can be. Breaking free isn't easy, but the potential payoff, the butterfly world, makes the struggle worthwhile.